Hello and welcome to another episode of the East London Sport Podcast. As ever, I have an athletic star with me today. Today he goes by the name of Ali Jawad. Ali, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
For those who may not know, Ali is in fact a ParaGB Powerlifter. He's competed in a few Olympics here and there, but I guess where we should start is actually how you got into powerlifting, because from what I've heard, it came from a suggestion from your friend to go to the gym.
Yeah, so during my GCSEs, after an exam, my friend wanted to kind of go to the gym across the road from our school. I didn't want to go because I'd not finished my exams yet, so I wanted to go home and revise, but he made me go with him. Yeah, we found a bench press in the corner of the gym, and in my first ever kind of attempt at the gym, I bench pressed 100 kilo, not knowing what that actually meant. But the whole gym stopped. I got told to kind of stay behind because the owner wanted to speak to me, and that's when the idea kind of that's how I got spotted, basically.
How you got scouted out. And am I right in thinking that at the time were you competing in judo as well?
So I competed in judo for 4 years, and I had to kind of quit because there's no category for me at the Paralympic Games, because it's only for visually impaired and blind. There's no amputee category.
Okay.
So I had to, but yeah, so I quit judo the year before my GCSEs to focus on my exams, not knowing that I was going to find the love of sport within a year.
Yeah. And so give us a brief timeline. So when you got scouted out in the gym, what happened? Did you get called back? Did you know some sort of agent try and sign you up? What came from there?
No, so the owner of the gym used to be the national coach of the powerlifting team. In fact, a really high level coach. So I didn't know that. He'd retired, but he owned this gym. And he said, look, he was going to retire from coaching completely, but he reckoned that with my talent, I could probably make a Paralympic Games. Probably not Beijing, because that was 2 years away at the time, but maybe in 2012. So within a couple of weeks, there was the British Championships. And obviously I'd missed the deadline to apply and enter, but because he knew some people, he got me in as a guest.
Yeah.
And I managed to win it. So I got fast-tracked on the national team within 2 weeks. And it was a very accelerated, kind of accelerated journey for me, because I went from not knowing what the sport was to being on the national team within 2 or 3 weeks and in that environment. So it was quite quick for me.
Yeah. How was that for you, just in terms of character, in terms of mentality? I feel like I can't really picture, if I'd done something for the first time, next thing you know, you're being rushed in to competition. Was there stress? Were you nervous? How did you take in your stride that quick turnaround?
It was actually more excitement, because obviously I've had the dream to compete at the Paralympic Games since I was 6, and because of the disappointment in judo, not being eligible, I thought my career was pretty much over. So the sport gave me another chance to chase it, and for me it was exciting to be a part of a national team that young, and dreaming of a Paralympic Games. Didn't realise I was going to be there within 18 months.
Yeah. So when you mentioned you wanted to take part in the Paralympics since the age of 6, how did that come around? Was that watching on TV? Was that inspiration in person?
Yeah, so in '96, I watched the Atlanta Olympic Games, and I watched a man called, I think people will know him, Michael Johnson, win his historic 200 and 400 meter gold medals. And when he was on the platform, he was just, he burst out crying, and I thought I need to feel that emotion, and that's where the inspiration came.
Cool. And so you went to the World Championships within 2 weeks.
No, that was
the British Championships within 2 weeks. At what point did you decide that powerlifting was going to be something you'd take seriously? Because by all means, I'm sure if you're competing at the British Championships, it is serious. But equally, at the time for you, again, it may still have just been a bit of fun.
Yeah, so I guess obviously it was a bit of fun at the time. Obviously it was exciting and new, but I was lucky enough that my coach at the time, he knew the standard of what you had to be to compete at world level. He always said to me that being the British champion doesn't mean you're that great. No disrespect to the British to the lifters, but at the time, like we had nobody that was considered truly world class. We had like lifters that had done pretty well in the past, but at the time, there was nobody that was world class, even though they were British champions. So he always said to me, "Do not judge yourself at British level. You have to judge it at world level." And his job was to make sure that as a junior athlete, I can, kind of be competitive in the senior ranks. And that meant hard work, discipline. He was quite a scary man, my coach. I didn't want to kind of cross him. So yeah, like it was kind of difficult to adjust to the strictness of what I had to do, because our sport was tough. Like just to make a Paralympic Games, I had to bench press 180 kilo just to go. At that age, you just don't do that.
So that's 80 on top of your outrageously good start. Yeah,
exactly. And that's just to make it. So, and not many juniors get to qualify for the game because they're so young. They haven't developed the physical qualities that makes them strong. So that's why for me, I was like, do I really want to spend 7 years just to make a Games, knowing that it's going to take a long time to get strong? So that for me, it was kind of a balance of how much do I really want to go, or can I find another sport where I can do it quicker? But yeah, it was quite tough in terms of kind of sacrificing a lot of my lifestyle at that age.
Yeah. So you mentioned strict training. I mean, for me at least, I'm sure many of our listeners won't have any clue what goes into powerlifting training. So what was so strict? Was it the hours you had to do? Was it diet? What did that involve?
I was lucky enough that my coach said, don't think about body weight because you're young. You just want to enjoy it. Just get strong. So we kind of took that stress out of the way and goes, right, just get strong. Come to the gym 4 times a week, and we'll see where you get to. Because I wasn't at the elite level yet, a lot of the stresses that the elite guys get, you don't really enforce that on a child. So I was lucky that he kind of managed me in a way where he made me enjoy it. He kind of, obviously it was hard work, but a lot of the stress was taken away from me because I didn't have to diet or anything like that. I got to still enjoy my life away from the gym, but use gym as a fun thing to do.
Yeah. Because
he saw that the talent that I had, all he had to do was kind of guide me and make sure that I was still enjoying it. Because for him, if you didn't enjoy it, there's no point. So I was lucky that even though at the time it seemed like hard work, I was enjoying. I was just enjoying my life, really. I didn't have to do what I have to do now.
And because you mentioned on one hand you sacrificed part of your younger life, but then you mentioned that actually going to the gym and doing this thing was something you quite enjoyed. So if there was parts that you sacrificed, what was it? Was it, potentially seeing your friends, seeing family, that kind of thing?
It was the fact that the balance between like getting my work done and training.
Blimey, you're still studying at the time.
Yeah, so I was on the verge. Well, I just kind of finished high school and went to college, a very top college that required a lot of work. So it was kind of balancing the workload and going to the gym 4 times a week after college, which is obviously quite tough after a full day, and then getting home at a certain time where you've actually got no time to do the work. So you're getting home really late from training. But he said to me, like, it's worth it now, invest in yourself now, so you learn all these behaviors for when you get to elite level where it gets a little bit stricter. So I was lucky that, he did guide me in a way that I felt that that's what junior athletes should be guided with. But yeah, at the time I felt like not seeing friends or not going out was a sacrifice to me because everyone was doing it. That's what you do. Like in teenage years, you go out and see mates.
And so like, moving forward, you mentioned at the time that you thought Beijing would be too far off. But if I'm correct, Beijing actually was a possibility. But unfortunately, it was the start of a few unfortunate events for yourself. Where did you have to pull out, or you became ill on the eve, and that affected you? Talk us through that and how especially how did you bounce back, given that was supposed to be almost your big break, you know, the start, not quite the start of the journey, but the start of the top journey?
Yeah, so I managed to defy the odds and qualify for Beijing, which is incredible because not many juniors do it within 18 months. And I took a gap year to train full time for the games because I'd qualified on my birthday in January, like actually on my birthday, which was the best birthday present ever. But then I had there was about 8 months left to the game, so I took the whole kind of year off college to make sure that I got there in the best shape. And I was actually going in there in the best shape I've ever been because of that time commitment. Unfortunately, the night before I competed, I got very sick. Didn't know what it was. Nobody did. They just thought it was a head cold or a bug in the village. And I lost 3 kilo overnight in body weight. Really sick. I got told to pull out, obviously, but I said, look, like I've trained this hard. I was never supposed to medal. It was my first one. I just want the experience. And I did compete the next day, and luckily didn't. Well, the aim was not to come last, and I didn't. Even though I was the youngest, in that group by 10, 12 years. So yeah, it didn't come last, but I was very, very ill. I just thought to myself, I'm going to learn from it, and hopefully, this bug goes away, and I'll be back. But didn't realize what was going to come.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what did come from that?
Yeah, so on my return from Beijing, I got worse. My symptoms got way worse. I'd lost about 20 kilo in body weight in a short space of time. So I was bedridden for months, wasn't eating, a lot of pain, didn't know what was wrong with me. Had a few tests, and within, 9 months later, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, something that you can't cure, you have to manage. And I thought my career was pretty much over because at the time, they didn't really know like the effects of Crohn's on elite athletes. This was 2009, so yeah, nobody knew the effects. But also, I found out that no Crohn's sufferer had ever won a medal at that level at the time. At the time, so it just shows you what I'm kind of dealing with and the odds against me.
And so, well, especially when that realization that you kind of had a mountain to climb already, just to hit the high level in the Paralympics, for example, and then that was made a lot tougher. Did you ever think about throwing in the towel and doing something different, or did you have the drive just to spur you on even further? Did you want to be that first athlete with Crohn's to get that medal?
Well, yes and no. So I defied the medical advice and went for it anyway, not knowing the task or how difficult the task was going to be. Because obviously at 19, you don't believe people. You think they're just saying it, and you think you can do it. Unfortunately, I kind of misjudged or underestimated the task. So tried to get back, and I couldn't. I was collapsing in the gym. I was really ill. I was actually made myself worse. And in late 2009, I had to, semi-retire from the sport to get myself healthy because I just wasn't healthy. And you can't really train and compete at that level if you're not healthy. And then in 2010, I got rushed into hospital for emergency surgery to save my life. Managed to save it. And then, I woke up and I thought to myself, well, we're 2 years away from 2012. I cannot let the parade go by without me being there competing on my home games, especially in London. That's where I'm from. So, I said to the doctors that I want to go to the Paralympic Games in London. They didn't agree. They said that my career was pretty much over after the operation. And within 2 weeks of that operation, I started training again, which was unheard of because it takes about 6 months to go over it. So I did take a massive risk on my life to try to get there.
I'm finding a bit of a theme here is your somewhat superhuman rapid turnaround that you seem to do, whether that's first of all being scouted or recovering from a certain injury or something like that. And so tell us what did happen at the London 2012? Were you able to compete?
Luckily, I managed to get there, only just, and it was good after the operation. I think I had a lot of problems. Obviously, coming back that quick, you have a lot of complications from it. And I managed to have 5 months before the games that were quite consistent for the first time since Beijing. So I got quite lucky. But yeah, on the day, probably one of my best career performances internationally. I broke the European record.
Nice.
And if it wasn't for a controversial judging, very controversial, they changed the rules now, but back then the rules were what it was. And yeah, I should have won a silver and came fourth in probably the most controversial circumstances. So I think I can definitely like look at it and go, actually, I probably won a medal that day if it wasn't for some silly refereeing.
And so I know what comes next. Obviously, you won a medal at Rio in 2016. Because of not only what you'd gone through in your career, but also what happened in London. Did that feel like redemption? Or again, was that something that, again, you're taking your stride, what's happened, and you were just proud to finally get that medal?
No, London haunted me every single day in that cycle.
Really?
Yeah, so I'd wake up thinking about it. I'd go to sleep thinking about it. I'd daydream about it, knowing that I got denied in the most coolest way. Now, as I said, like the rules got changed afterwards because the sport didn't really plan for that sort of situation. It was quite a unique situation on the day. But I never really got a reason why or an apology or anything like that. So yeah, like for me going into Rio, it was all about a medal, nothing else. It was the only way to kind of lay them ghosts to bed. So yeah, like I was lucky that after London, I had my best kind of period in my career where I was on top for what, three years. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to have come away with a medal and managed to redeem myself.
So if we have any listeners who are maybe going through tough times mentally, similar to like you've mentioned about being haunted as you described it after London, did you have any techniques to kind of put it aside and switch your focus, or like just how were you able to keep going with that kind of on your shoulders?
I think the lucky thing for me was that actually on the day I performed incredibly. Like if I had to look at myself and the way I did it and the way I came back from life-saving surgery, that performance was absolutely incredible. And I knew that I'd given it my best shot. But also I realized that actually I had an opportunity again in 4 years. So if I gave up now, I'd probably regret that being my last memory in London. Like, why would you want to, retire on that last memory being so bad? So I knew that I was capable enough to, compete at that sort of level and mix it with the best guys. And luckily I decided to carry on, and I had the best period of my career, winning every single major medal in that 4 years leading up to Rio.
Nice. Oh, congratulations. And so you went to Rio, you had your medal. Was there a thought of ending then? Because like you said, you'd previously, after London, you said, look, I just want my medal. Now that you had it, what was your thinking going forward to potentially further Olympic Games or Paralympic Games, sorry?
To be honest, obviously, it was a silver in Rio, and obviously as an athlete, you think, can I do one better? Am I capable enough? Is my body going to hang on? And I felt the way I was lifting and training, I could come very close to it, especially with another 4 years. And I was still really young. I was 27. So in our sport, you don't really peak into your mid-30s. So I knew that, if I'd carried on, I could, have a shot at a gold medal, not realizing that my health was going to take a very bad turn, and I was even going to struggle to get there. So yeah, like obviously I came back and obviously enjoyed that silver medal, but then it was all focused on Tokyo, not realizing health-wise what is going to come at me.
And so yeah, in obviously not only the health-wise for yourself, but obviously we had COVID-19, we had lockdown. Did that affect preparation going towards Tokyo, or were there other things on the side that were affecting your just ability to train and perform?
I think for me, like health-wise was the main one. As athletes, you adapt to any situation. So for me, like COVID wasn't really much of a distraction because of how bad my health was, and that was the priority. like I've been kind of indirectly kind of shielding for about 3 years because of my health. So I knew what to do when it comes to lockdown. So I had them tools too. We converted my living room to a gym so I could still train. So you adapt, but yeah, like for me, it was kind of getting me there in a healthy way, which we couldn't do. I wasn't healthy at all in that cycle. But I also knew that just getting there was going to be the medal rather than the medal itself, unfortunately. Yeah, like I'm pretty proud that I saw a process through to the end, knowing that the outcome was not what I was going to want. I guess it's just a testament of just not giving up and seeing something through to the end.
Yeah, I mean, you've alluded to it there. I believe you finished 6th in Tokyo, a position you called a medal in life. Would you see that potentially, whilst you got your silver, whilst you followed your dream initially to take part in London, would you say that medal in life would be the highlight of your career?
I think from a physical point of view of what I've had to go through to get there, yes, with the circumstances like surrounding it, with the odds that were stacked, because my situation's that it's so rare in terms of my Crohn's and the impact it had on me, and how bad it was, and obviously training for Paralympic Games. So yeah, like when it comes to the context behind it, probably my best achievement. But obviously people judge you on the outcome, not really the process, what you've been through. And yeah, I guess what I try to tell people is don't judge it all on the outcome, not knowing what went behind the scenes, and not have to go on behind the scenes for me just to make it.
No, that's entirely fair enough. And so you've competed at Tokyo, and now obviously we've got we're starting the next cycle towards the next Paralympic Games. And I saw you had an interview with The Guardian in which you felt that, if I could quote, you said Paralympians are being forgotten about until the next Games. What did you mean by that, and what more do you think can be done to elevate para athletes such as yourself?
So what I meant by that was the fact that, like, it's great that we're having worldwide coverage every 4 years at the Paralympic Games, for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is. But there's not enough coverage of the regional or world championships from parasport. So you don't see the Powerlifting World Championships, or the European Championships. You don't see the Taekwondo European Championships. Like, a lot of the sports are not given like TV coverage in between the Paralympic Games. So how do we grow the Paralympic Games or Paralympic sport if there's no coverage in between? So I guess it was directed at the media and broadcasters who actually you can do way better. You can't just use us every 4 years and say you've been doing great work when actually in between the cycles you do nothing apart from a media story, which is not enough.
And so, I mean, this is me speaking with obviously no understanding or context about coverage of sport, or anything like that. Do you think there are the means and facilities to elevate para athletes in the way that you're expecting? Like, why do you think that it hasn't been at that stage so far?
I think I don't know how broadcasting works. So I think funding's one, resources, people, appetite. Does it sell? But I think in the 21st century now, you can live stream something quite easily. That's quite cost effective. So I don't see why the major broadcasters just don't live stream it on their websites and just promote it. Yeah, like I obviously somebody needs to explain to me what the legality of it is. But like if different sports can live stream their events quite easily, I don't see why a broadcaster or a major broadcaster can't do the same.
No, that's fair enough. And I guess you mentioned certain factors such as funding, but ultimately, if the coverage isn't there, perhaps there may not be as many role models visible, you might think. But I've read that you yourself are taking the initiative to increase opportunities within para sport. From what I've read, either you're launching or you're taking a key role in a new app called Accessor Size, which helps disabled people in their efforts to get fit. Tell us first of all more about that. It sounds like a great idea. And secondly, where the idea came from, and thirdly, where do you want it to go? I mean, I realize that's three very rapid fire questions, but yeah, fill us in on a little bit on Accessercise.
Yeah, so during lockdown, when you've obviously got more time to reflect and think, you're not going anywhere. I asked myself the question of, why was I the only disabled person in a gym? I never asked why. I never asked, were the facilities good enough? I didn't understand the barriers that disabled people faced. Was I more adaptable? Was I just more committed? I didn't know. I thought to myself, has that changed in the last 15 years? Do I see disabled people in gyms? And the answer is not a lot, unless they're at the elite level. So I thought to myself, well, I've been quite lucky to have incredible facilities and coaches and support and funding. But we know that every disabled person doesn't want to be a Paralympian. They just want to be healthy and fit like everyone else, but they lack opportunities and, the knowledge and the guidance. So I thought to myself, how can I bring that to the disabled community in a way that's never been done before? So I thought, well, the fitness industry is huge. Loads of apps are being used. I think a lot of the apps in the Apple and Google stores are fitness based. And I thought, so I did my research. I thought, wait a minute, there is none that cater for disabilities. Absolutely none. We've got an industry worth billions, but none factor in disability. I thought to myself, surely you could do it. So yeah, I thought, right, how can I bring a fitness app to disabled people like we've never seen before? And that's what Accessercise is. It's going to be, it is the first ever complete fitness app, especially designed for impairments. And I'm hoping that we can get in every single country in the world, so it gives 15% of the global population a chance to feel empowered, but also gain knowledge about how to get fit. And for me, it's a recreational app. It's not an elite app at all. It's for the disabled community and not elite Paralympians. You're not going to see any Paralympians in there. So yeah, that's why I created it. I just wanted to kind of bridge that gap and make sure that disabled people are not forgotten about.
And so how will that help disabled people? Would that have suggested workouts? Would it be tracking movement? How will it work?
Yeah, so basically it gives the user access to a catalogue of video exercises performed by somebody of their impairment. Now, I'm not an expert on every single impairment, so I did not want it to be a personal training app or an app that suggests workout, because I'm not an expert on every impairment. What I wanted to do was give them short videos of exercises, and they get to pick. They get to create their own workout because they know their bodies, they know how to push themselves, they know what to hold back with. So I just wanted to give them the information, and they get to kind of get an education in terms of what works, what doesn't, but also empower themselves to create their own workouts. And it also gives them a community so they can speak to other disabled people about training, so that they get confident and motivated. There's also a rating scale in the app where it's an accessibility rating scale where you rate gyms and local facilities in the area about how accessible they are. So people can get directed to facilities within the app. So yeah, I felt like it can't be a personal training app. It had to be something that educates and guides disabled people with their own fitness journeys.
I guess we've taken more of a natural curve to your, a more casual side of your life, where you are now. We've spoken a lot about your professional career, but if we're going to go on the flip side, what is it like being Ali Jawad? What do you do if you have a typical week? I mean, I know for many athletes, para athletes, there is no typical week. But what do you kind of do in your spare time? How do you relax?
The answer is I probably don't relax as much as I should. Unfortunately, it's probably my fault for taking on too much. So obviously, being an elite athlete means you're training full time. Obviously, the app is now something that's going to take a lot of my time trying to launch that and making sure that's a success. And also, on top of that, I'm doing a PhD. So yeah, I'm not gonna. There's not actually time to chill actually.
Yeah, no, I believe I read about that. Funny enough, correct me if I'm wrong. It's about doping in para sports. Obviously, to get to a PhD level, you have to have done studying beforehand. I believe at one point you were a scholar at UEL, University of East London. But even as thinking about a dual career as a whole, why did you decide to go down that route?
You mean anti-doping and PhD?
Or just the studying on the side? Because, for many people, for many athletes, that is something rather unheard of, especially for someone such as yourself who's been, competing at the Paralympics.
I guess my parents from a young age said that for me to do sport, I have to have an education, and they won't let me do sport unless I did my homework. So I guess I was it was installed in me as a kid to fall back on something. And anti-doping has been a hobby of mine since I was, still got into sport. And I'm lucky enough to hopefully kind of put my ideas on paper and do a PhD in it. And hopefully, my ideas could lead to future regulation change for para athletes and making sure that they just get a fair shot. We'll see what my studies conclude, but So for me, it's weird. I'm glad I'm contributing to the system at the elite end, but also giving something to the community at the kind of the other end of the spectrum. So so I'm not just an elite athlete with an elite mind or an elitist way of doing things. I kind of think about the bigger picture and the power of what sport can do at a recreational level too. So that's why I'm probably pretty busy.
And if I could ask you a final question about your more casual life, I've read that you're a Liverpool fan.
Massive.
One thing I like doing on these podcasts when I'm speaking to athletes is asking about, what they do outside. So in the past, it's been about their favorite TV series. It's been about, what they do on the side. So you're a Liverpool fan. I feel like I cannot help but ask. At the time of recording, Liverpool just won 5-0 away at Old Trafford. Obviously, bearing in mind the Cup of Nations and potentially Salah, Mane, etc., not playing, where do you think your chances are of winning another Premier League title?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because obviously the African Cup of Nations are coming soon. We're going to be without, some really good players. And I think, last year we struggled without a lot of our players with injuries. And I feel like come December, we're going to be probably there or thereabouts on top of the league. I just feel like you take away Salah, Mane, Keita, Matip, and we're going to struggle. I think we'll struggle. I think our team are not, even though the team coach is incredible, the players behind them they're not at that level. And I think we'll probably struggle in the second half of the year. But that's my rational brain on. Hoping it doesn't happen and they prove me wrong. But unfortunately, that competition's an inconvenience because we're going to be without some really key players going into the second half of the season.
It truly is. Do you think you'll dip into the January transfer window to bring in another attacker, or have you got a funny feeling knowing the owners as you probably do, they're probably just going to ride it out?
Yeah, I'm hoping they can bring in somebody, but Klopp's got a lot of trust in them players. He always has faith in them. He's a great coach, regardless of how good a player is. I think they might stick. But I'm hoping they do buy somebody because I think, imagine being on top of the league in December, and then suddenly you have a massive dip for 6 weeks. You just can't afford that. So it depends what the priority is.
We haven't got too much time left, but one thing I always ask any guests we have on the podcast is for any young athletes that are listening or any scholars that are listening to someone such as yourself. You are a para star, let's be honest. You're a para star, and I'd hope that they'd want to take some advice from you, follow in your footsteps in some way. What advice would you give to anyone listening when it comes to following their dream or reaching their end goal?
Oh, good question. So what I've kind of discovered through 16 years of like top level sport is that it's okay to have a fundamental plan, but in that plan, it can't be strict. It has to be adaptable, and you have to be flexible because elite sport is unpredictable and challenging. So you need to have the flexibility to be adaptable at all times, because the most adaptable athlete is the one that does the best, rather than the athlete that's got a regimented plan. So have a fundamental plan, but make sure that you're adaptable and flexible within the process too.
Okay, very sound advice. And yeah, I think we're probably going to look to wrap it up there. Once again, thank you very much, Ali, for coming on. A very interesting story. I may as well ask, is there any passing comments you want to make other than what you've already said?
No, just, yeah, thanks for having me on. I hope people take something away.
No worries. And so that's the end of this episode of the East London Sport Podcast. Please tune in next time, and you never know which athlete we'll bring out next. Thank you very much.